Right now,
Today we'll tackle tough times in California.
economic troubles facing San Diego will be the focus of Mayor Jerry Sanders' annual State of the City
reports a 60% hike in rapes where either one or both people.
UCLA researchers tracked the progress of 50 sarcoma patients using
From the KPBS studios, this is San Diego Week.
Hello, I'm Joanne Ferrian. Tonight, San Diego may be off the hook for millions of dollars in health benefits it would pay to retiring city employees. We'll find out how this could affect the city's budget deficit. And one of the most notorious drug cartel leaders from Tijuana is now in the hands of San Diego authorities. And a report on the quality of the air we're breathing. Why did San Diego get a failing grade? Find out why there's construction at Lindbergh Field, and we'll hear a lively debate over a surfing Madonna in Encinitas. Is it art or illegal graffiti? And the San Diego Student Shakespeare Festival begins this weekend in Balboa Park. We'll give you a preview. Amitha Sharma joins me now from the KPBS News Center. Amitha, what can you tell us about the charges released today against some of the men indicted in the USD basketball fixing scandal?
Well, Joanne, two of the men accused of fixing basketball games at the University of San Diego are now accused of terrorizing a family in a home invasion. Authorities allege Steve Goria and David Gates, along with two other men, invaded a Rancho San Diego home, tied up a family, and ran off with jewelry and cash. San Diego Mayor Jerry Sanders is calling on the City Council to lift water restrictions imposed on residents in 2009 because of the drought. But record rainfall this winter has left the state with brimming reservoirs and a deep Sierra snowpack. If the council lifts water restrictions, San Diegans won't be fined for watering their lawns more than 3 times a week. The limit on risky payday loans might rise soon in California. Democratic Assemblyman Charles Calderon wants to raise the cap from $300 to $500. But consumer groups say the larger the loan amount, the greater the risk for people to get caught in a debt trap. Payday loans allow borrowing against future paychecks for high fees in exchange for immediate money.
A court ruled this week the city of San Diego is not obligated to pay health benefits to city employees when they retire. This ruling could potentially affect nearly 7,500 employees, but it could also save the city millions of dollars. Joining me now to talk about the impact of this court ruling is City Attorney Jan Goldsmith. Mr. Goldsmith, thanks for being here. So,
pleasure to be with you.
Right now, if you work for the city and you retire, what kind of health benefits do you receive?
Well, if you were hired before 2005, you have retiree health benefits that would pay $8,800 a year. With an escalator means that it might go up depending upon certain factors, and that kicks in, of course, when you retire.
So how much does that cost the city right now?
Well, it was set up in 1982, and they never figured out how to pay for it. It's kind of one of those things in San Diego. And right now, the city is paying as it's going. It's called PAYGO, $57 million a year, but it really doesn't pay for all of it. And we haven't paid over the last 40 years. So it's accumulated a deficit. That deficit is $1.3 billion. And as years go on, the $57 million is going to go up much, much, much higher in order to pay off that $1.3 billion. It's a financial mess.
So that $1.3 billion, when we hear the term unfunded liability, that's what we're talking about?
Yes, it's like the balance on your mortgage, but you're not paying enough to draw down the principal. In fact, you've got to add more to it. We're upside down on it.
So the $57 million you're paying every year to sort of service this kind of a debt, where's that coming from?
It's coming from the general fund, the same fund that pays for police, fire, libraries, and the $57 million services those who are already retired, plus part of the promise to employees who are now, and we put that in account and hold it for them, but it's not much.
So does this court ruling mean you suddenly don't have to pay that we have that additional money every year?
Well, the judge did rule that it's not a vested benefit. A vested benefit is protected under the Constitution. Retirement benefits are protected. Our office has taken the position that it's not a vested benefit, it's just a term and condition of employment. That is, It's the same thing as vacation leave, which we can change, and salary, which we can change. But you got to negotiate it first. Judge Prager agreed with us on that. But you know, this is the trial court. It can go to appeal upon appeal upon appeal. And this was a test case. It was filed by some members of the board of directors of the Police Officers Group Association. So it doesn't technically apply to the others. So the answer, can we just stop it today? We could, but we'll get more lawsuits and we'll litigate it for a number of years. I've said that I think Judge Prager, he's a very well-respected judge. He wrote a very well-thought-out decision. This is a very good opportunity for us to sit down and say, we don't want a couple more years of litigation. Let's use his decision as guidance and work out a reasonable plan that will save taxpayers hundreds of millions of dollars. I think one of the problems we've had in the city is that we've litigated a lot, we've talked a lot, but I think people really want results. So this is a good opportunity. Let's go get some results on retiree health.
The city's got some leverage now in terms of their negotiating position. At the end of the day, what do you see happening to the health benefits of those potentially 7,500 employees when they retire?
We've known about the tentative decision, Judge Prager's tentative decision, for 2 weeks. This is the final. So we have been talking with labor. And I think that we have a good opportunity here, and I think they realize it. And the folks who have this benefit, right now, without changing anything, it's funded 3%. That doesn't give you much. I don't think that, I think it's someday it's just not, you're just not going to get it. So I think if we can work out a reasonable plan, the taxpayers will save hundreds of millions of dollars. Employees will get something that they can rely upon for its funding.
Jan Goldsmith, thanks for being here.
It's a pleasure.
One of the most wanted and brutal drug cartel bosses, Benjamin Arellano Felix, was extradited today from Mexico to face charges in San Diego. Arellano Felix was considered the mastermind of the Tijuana-based cartel in the 1990s. KPBS reporter Amitha Sharma joins me now with details. Amitha, let's start with telling us about who is Benjamin Arellano Felix.
Well, Benjamin, along with 3 of his brothers, ran one of the most brutal drug cartels in Latin America, in Mexico, in the 1990s. And he was considered the brain behind this cartel. When he led it until his arrest in 2002, this cartel was responsible for moving billions of dollars of drugs from Mexico and Colombia into the United States. There was a time when his picture, along with the picture of his brother Ramon, who is now deceased, were on posters in the United States, most wanted posters, posters that also contained the photograph of Osama bin Laden. There was also a $2 million bounty on his head.
So what's the significance of this extradition?
Well, it's hugely significant depending on what he does when he comes here. First of all, it is significant that that Mexico extradited such a powerful figure. He was arrested back in 2002. This extradition did not happen until 2011. A lot of people believe it's because Mexico just got a new attorney general by the name of Marissa Morales, and that she might have been responsible for this. But the other part of it is, what will he say when he is questioned by investigators here? He knows where all the bodies are buried. He knows where the police officers, the governors, the generals are buried. Will he spill the beans?
So tell us why the Americans want him. What is it? What kind of charges is he going to face here now?
He faces drug conspiracy charges. He faces racketeering charges. When he led the cartel didn't just bring in cocaine. It controlled a third of the cocaine traffic into the United States. It also brought in methamphetamine, marijuana, heroin, and he also, when he led the cartel, this cartel murdered police officers, governors, military generals, and those people who got in the way or didn't cooperate, they were murdered as well. They also bought off police officers and members of the military and other politicians.
Amitha Sharma, thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Well, there was good news and bad news about San Diego's air quality this week. The good news, it's much better than it was 10 years ago. The bad news, we still got a failing grade from the American Lung Association. Deborah Kelly is with the Lung Association in San Diego, and she joins me now to tell us more about the air we're breathing. So, Deborah, tell us about what the Lung Association was measuring when it did this kind of survey.
Yes, well, we really look at two components: ground level ozone, or what people commonly call smog, and then particle pollution. And so with ground level ozone, the way that works, it's an irritating chemical and it tends to burn your lungs just the way the sun burns your skin. With particle pollution, sometimes the particles are so small they bypass the defenses, go through the lungs, and they get into the bloodstream. And so that's one reason why on bad air quality days there are more heart attacks. And so both ozone and particle pollution are very dangerous. Basically air pollution in general causes lung cancer and heart attacks, and it sends people to the hospitals and emergency room. And of course it makes it very, very difficult to breathe for all those people with asthma and lung disease.
So when it comes to ozone, this sort of smog or gas that's not good for you, where did we rank in terms of the other cities?
Well, unfortunately, we ranked 7th. We have the 7th worst air quality when it comes to ozone, and so that's not a top 10 list that you really want to make.
So right now, we're seeing a lot of cars on the freeway. Now, this is, I guess, presume, one of the reasons we see a lot of this kind of gas?
Yeah, that's exactly it. Basically, the tailpipe emissions mix with the sun and the heat, and then the mountains trap all of that pollution. And so when you put all of those ingredients together, all the people, all the cars, our climate, our geography, it all adds up to a big air pollution problem.
What about particles? Where did we rank when it came to that type of pollution?
We did a little bit better. We ranked 15th worst in the nation. Fortunately, most of our air pollution is really coming from mobile sources, the vehicles, the diesel, the ships in the port, and so forth. And so we don't actually have a lot of heavy industry, things like that actually will generate a lot of particle pollution. But having said that, we still are bad. I mean, most cities in the United States do better than we do, and so we have to do a better job to protect our citizens.
In terms of ozone, I know that I was looking at the report briefly, and it did mention that it was sort of 3 days where San Diego surpassed really the optimal amount of ozone. So it sounds as though, I mean, we're looking at pretty stringent regulations or guidelines in terms of air quality.
Yes.
We're not as bad as perhaps the 7th ranking would indicate, or?
Well, yeah, it's definitely, it's really true with the American Lung Association that we do set the bar very high, and that is because our health is at risk. And, there are immediate effects of pollution, and then there are the long-term effects. And so if you happen to be the person whose parent dies from the heart attack on that one day, or 3 days that we had ozone, then that's really important. And so really I think the message is that we really do need, and we will be able to eventually clean up our air so that no one's health is jeopardized.
Just briefly before we go, though, we're doing much better than we were 10 years ago, according to this report.
Yeah. Our ozone levels have dropped more than 51% over 10 years, and particle pollution is 30% less. So good for us.
And on a positive note, thank you so much, Deborah Kelly, for being here.
Thank you.
As if air travel weren't hassle enough, Lindbergh Field is now the scene of a major construction project. Pat Finn looked into what's going on and what we can expect now and when it's completed.
One sign is on. Please cross street with caution.
If you've been to Lindbergh Field lately, you must have noticed the construction. San Diego International Airport is in year 3 of a 4-year, $1 billion improvement project for its newest terminal. Terminal 2 was begun in 1975, but never completed. Although, who knew? When it is completed in 2013, it will be enormous and environmentally friendly. I wanted to find out exactly what we were getting for $1 billion. asked Bob Bolton, the senior program manager, what's included.
So we're adding about 460,000 square foot of additional building space. We're going to include a double-level roadway, dual-level roadway, so that we can separate our arrivals from our departures. Our new security checkpoint is going to be twice the size of the existing, going from 6 lanes of security screening to 12 lanes. We also will have about 40,000 square feet of additional food and beverage, concession, news and gift shops. We'll have a new ticket lobby, 10 new gates. We'll have the ability to handle some of the larger aircraft.
Well, that's news. We're all used to flying in and out on 737s and Airbus 320s. Now we can book an aircraft the size of a 747. Of course, we'll still eat peanuts and pay to check our bags. The terminal project is going for a silver certificate from LEED, the Green Building Certification System. That'll mean both the construction and the finished building are easy on the environment, which means recycling construction waste as well as using recycled materials.
The intent is not to allow them to go into the landfill, but to reuse them either here on site or off-site on other projects.
Terminal 2 will generate solar energy from rooftop panels, but try to use as little of it as possible.
We want to let the sunlight into the building, the natural light, to help offset some of the lighting needs inside, but not allow the heat to be too excessive, where we'd have to spend a lot of energy cooling the building.
The new Terminal 2, in other words, will be something completely different. And the rest of Lindbergh Field? Well, that's another story for another decade. Terminal 1 will still be jammed to the rafters with Southwest customers. There will be no parking structure. Rental car companies will be scattered all over the place. Those improvements are in the future. And most importantly, Lindbergh Field will still have just one runway.
That was KPBS reporter Pat Finn. Now, a story that some would say could only happen here. One day, late last week, a group of artists posing as construction workers installed a large stained glass mural on the wall of an overpass in Encinitas. Or so the story, which is fast becoming legend, goes. Here's what the mosaic looks like. Yes, it is the Madonna on a surfboard, or more specifically, Our Lady Guadalupe on a surfboard. It's creating quite a wave of controversy in Encinitas.
Oh, it's art, for sure. But then I'm not sure the line between art and vandalism, sometimes it gets a little cloudy, you know. But this is beautiful art.
Oh, I'd say this qualifies as art. Of course, they have put it on somebody else's property, but maybe they could get a waiver because it's already there and it's beautiful.
Technically, it could be considered vandalism, but obviously art's in the eye of the beholder. So you were asking me the question, to me it's art.
And joining me now to talk about whether the mosaic will stay or go and whether it's art or just plain old graffiti is Encinitas Council member Maggie Houlihan. Maggie, thanks for being here.
And thank you for having me.
So tell me, when you first saw the Lady Madonna on a surfboard, what'd you think?
I was blown away. I thought it was magnificent. It's great art. Of course, the concern was, oops, it's on public property. And of course, then I think the story that you shared, how it got there, our city clerk saw the folks in construction garb and assumed they were NCTD workers doing some improvements to the bridge.
So from a legal point of view, from the city of Encinitas point of view, why can't this mosaic be there? What went wrong in terms of installing it and putting it up on this public space?
What went wrong was there was no process followed. There was no permission given. We have hired an art conservator that has already been down and looked at it. There's a lot of issues. First of all, it's not there legally. But at the same time, let's say if the art was going to stay, it would have had to have been engineered. We're going to find out a couple things. First of all, can it be removed safely without destroying it? We've already had at least 3 folks from the community have called up and offered to pay for the entire removal and reinstallation on private property. But also, if it was going to stay, is engineered in a way that it can withstand all the vibrations from the trains overhead? And is there any problem with those tiles falling at some point? In addition, every time I go there today, there's flowers installed down at the bottom. You're seeing from the newscast that folks are coming in droves. This thing is all over the nation. People are talking about it, and we're getting visitors from LA County, Orange County, Riverside, groups of tourists, people saying, I've had people come to me downtown, I was at lunch, where's the surfing Madonna? Because they think it's under the freeway bridge, not the train.
So if your consultant says, oh, it can stay, it's safe and we can keep it up, aren't you now entering into a whole other debate? This is a religious symbol. Can it stay?
Well, we're hoping for a win-win so that we don't even go there. My fingers are crossed. The people we've hired do conservation of architectural elements on old buildings, all kinds of art. We are optimistic that there will be a way to remove it safely or with minimal damage so that it can be repaired and reinstalled.
And where do you think it's going to be installed quickly?
Well, I've had Coast Highway 101 Traders. We've had an offer from Captain Keno's restaurant. We've had an offer from St. John the Evangeline Catholic Church. So
could be the traveling surfing Madonna soon.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much, Councilmember Houlihan, for being here.
Thank you.
Once again, the play's the thing as the San Diego Shakespeare Society kicks off its 6th annual Student Festival in Balboa Park. KPBS reporter Beth Accomando previews the event and visits 2 classrooms preparing to perform this weekend.
We do declare this festival open!
This Saturday at noon, some 300 San Diego students will perform Shakespeare on 5 outdoor stages in Balboa Park. The Student Festival was launched in 2006 by the San Diego Shakespeare Society, a nonprofit group that works with schools to bring the bard into the classroom and then into the park. Monica Hall teaches drama at Carlsbad High School.
It's amazing. It starts with a big parade with all these students, and my kids get a kick out of seeing there's little kids from elementary school, there's middle school kids. The exposure to, I think, the way it was done in Shakespeare's time, having babies crying, people playing musical instruments, things that in a regular theater we would think of as distracting elements, it's all there in Balboa Park.
Some schools perform scenes from one play, some will do a montage, some will take the sonnets and interpret them, and then there are some schools that will take some of his pieces and then could put a complete twist upon them and overlap them and do some avant-garde sort of things with them.
The runners are entering!
This year, Latham's 3rd and 4th graders will be putting a grease spin on Much Ado About Nothing.
We have cut it down, but it's still Shakespeare's actual words. So the children will see the work and they'll read through it a few times. We'll talk about it as a group and we'll say, what does that mean? Does that make sense?
She won an excellent wife for Benedict. I'm going to try to do something really, really hard, which is to make Senor Benedict and Lady Beatrice like each other a lot.
Patricia Lynch is one of the directors on the board of the San Diego Shakespeare Society.
We like to come in and offer whatever help we can, whether it's at the beginning of the process where actors will come in and work with students and teachers, or what I do and the other directors do and come in and offer any suggestions toward the closing of the rehearsal process.
The tragedy of
Othello. Shakespeare's wild. You think, oh, he's some old, stuffy guy from some English time period, whatever. But no, he writes some pretty crazy stuff.
I have it. It is engendered. Hell and night must bring this monstrous birth to the world's light.
My students, they excel in language arts because they've been exposed to so much Shakespeare.
They get to expand their vocabulary quite a bit, and the stories really have universal values as well. So even our story that we're expressing, there are a lot of overlapping issues involved in the story, and we have those conversations about it too. So they really grow a lot in the course of the class, so it's really exciting for them.
Give me your hand if we be friends, and Robin shall restore amends.
KPBS's Beth Accomando reporting. The The San Diego Student Shakespeare Festival begins at noon in the Oregon Pavilion in Balboa Park with the 5 stages lining the Prado. The festival is free. And now here's Amitha Sharma with an update on what KPBS is working on for next week.
Coming up next week on KPBS, we'll look into how hospitals are using therapeutic hypothermia to help heart attack patients. And on These Days, find out if the Chargers added any impact players in the NFL draft.
Thanks, Amitha. All of the stories you saw tonight can be viewed on our website at kpbs.org/SDweek. And now, here's a look at your weekend weather forecast. Thanks for watching. Good night.